Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Yes, it is always epic to see a fellow North American Dogman project member make their way into the darkness of the Fox Den for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy on LordeStarfox Radio. Well, that was a little bit more messy than preferred. No worries though, I will clean up the blood splatter later. Without further ado, it is time for Patrick Bryan and myself to take a walk into the madness known as the Dogman.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf, and everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night. Yes, once again, you are tuning in to LordeStarfox Radio on Midnight Lycanthropy. Patrick Bryan, the North American Dogman Project, Texas state rep, has found his way into the darkness of the Fox Den to set up the late night fire, as we will be burning the timber once again into the early hours of the morning, reading a few chapters from the Midnight Society book. Patrick, my man, how you doing, bro?
How's it going, man?
Long time no talk. How you been?
Just been working like crazy and replacing the Xterra. That's it.
Yes, to the audience, unfortunately, Mr. Bryan had a little bit of a fender bender, but everything seems to be working out in his favor. And if you are not familiar with Patrick, you can check out a previous episode we have already worked on that there should be a playlist down below, which will give you a little bit of an update. But Patrick, would you like to tell the audience who you are, what you do, what you've been up to?
Well, my name is Patrick Bryan. I'm the Texas State Representative for the North American Dogman Project. I'm actually training an SRT team for the North American Dogman Project for the state of Texas. The aforementioned Xterra was actually going to be our investigation vehicle. Had a lot of cool stuff planned for it, and it got totaled on me, so we're starting over with a new vehicle. And other than work, that's about all I do.
Excellent stuff right there, as expected, minus the little collision. Yet, hey, things happen. That's kind of the way life rolls, I've learned. It's usually what happens in between our plans, not the other way around, that we can call life.
Right.
We think, hey, today's starting out just like any other day. We're going to go cruising. I'll be back home later, 4 p.m., watching the Bruins game. Next thing you know, right, your car's all smashed up. You're like, oh, hey, didn't see this one coming.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing about East Texas, man. There's a lot of people around here that can't drive.
Hey, I'm from the Northeast, so I'm spending time down in Massachusetts a lot. You want to see some maniacs. That's why we have that terminology, mass hole.
Right.
Maniacs. Absolutely insane. Yeah, I do apologize for running a little late. Yet, if you do know me by now, unfortunately, to yourself and the audience, I have many qualities according to people, yet one of my non qualities is time. I am not on time for anything, usually. Occasionally, a miracle might happen where I am ahead of schedule, I appear on time. Yet, like I said, it's really not a positive quality of mine, except, well, some people are early to events, which would mean as you are arriving to your funeral, the guy's going to be like, dude, you still have like 10 minutes to live. What are you doing? Whereas for me, hey, I'm going to be late to my own funeral, so it doesn't matter, right?
Right. That's actually my daughter right there.
I know. It's like I said, honestly, I'm not impressed by that. I accept it and I do try to work on it and be good at everything, I suppose, eh?
I mean, life happens, man. You got to adapt to it. That's all there is to it.
Yes, exactly. What else have you been up to when it comes to diving in to anything Dogman based, baboon, devil monkey, hyenas? What have you been working on, man?
Actually, I've been kind of doing a little bit of research on some of the thoughts that maybe the military may be involved with them a little bit. Um, I always had trouble trying to make that connection between a living physical being like Dogman and how the military would control this. And I did a little research and I came across a gentleman named Jose Delgado from back in the 50s and 60s at Yale University. What he did is quintessentially made himself remote controlled animals and people.
Makes sense. In theory, again, that's awesome. A ton of things always make sense in theory, yet it's trying to bring forth the evidence to support the hypothesis or theory. I've been diving into so many interesting aspects like that. So I love how you did bring that up. A lot of people don't realize just magnetic poles, just things in general that could be persisted as magic actually really are just natural occurring things, meaning, again, in theory, yet reality, you and I could push a very large boulder in a proper situation with quite ease, meaning the magnetic poles. There's actually a really cool setup by this gentleman that made a rock house, more or less, based on these areas where the magnetic pull would occur and interact with these rocks that he had in there. And you just see these little kids pushing this huge rock door, and it's just opening because of the magnetic pull. Just rang up in my mind when you were speaking about that.
Right. But with Delgado, they actually have video of him on some of his experiments, one of which he was in a bullfighting ring. Um, he was over in Spain, of course. And he has these bullfighters out there antagonizing this bull, getting it really worked up, really mad. Then he steps out in the ring, and the bullfighters disappear or run away, basically. And the bull starts to charge him, and he flips the switch and raises his hand up, and the bull stops and turns around and walks away. And he does it like 3 or 4 times. You know, he took a lady that was a violent schizophrenic, and she loved to play guitar, so she had her playing guitar with another scientist in the room with her. He flips the switch, and she goes from playing guitar to trying to hit this guy with the guitar, and then flips another switch, and she falls in love with him like immediately. And thought that was pretty interesting. To some of the encounters that we do deal with, where people are saying like, there's a story out there of dogmen marching in formation. How would dogman march in formation if it's just a wild animal? You know what I mean?
Wow. Excellent stuff again. I think a lot of that stems back with the cynocephali. You were saying like marching and things like that. They, according to Herodotus and Alexander the Great, were a very stern, military-based type culture. Didn't really seem to take flack from people. Were pretty stoic. And if what you're saying now means you're already working with something potentially that is understanding, maybe people don't even need to do the whole switch thing. I mean, if they fought with Alexander the Great and against him, seems like he was able to convince them at points in time to align with him. Probably wouldn't be too hard to find something in the interest line to maybe align yourself again. Could you get the fruits of the battlefield, the fallen? Now you get to battle all the time, which who knows? Maybe the Cynocephali have the same type of mentality as like the predator, which is totally
Right.
fiction. You know how the predator just always enjoys fighting? Well, seemingly the Cynocephali, according to Alexander the Great, were hellacious fighters, which if you're a warrior-based culture like the Vikings or anything that likes to engage in conflict, you're going to enjoy that, right?
Right. No, definitely there. I mean, we've got tons of accounts from, Alexander the Great, Marco Polo. I always forget his name, the Greek father of history.
Herodotus.
Herodotus, thank you, Herodotus. Yeah,
Yeah.
I always forget him. I forget his name. But yeah, I mean, we have a lot of accounts of them of being in battles, and that could possibly be it. Maybe we made a way to make them side with us, no matter what. The possibility.
Just food for thought. It really has a lot of credence potentially to it. In theory, again, is it easier to convince, as you said, a grizzly bear to fight on your side? Or would it be easier to convince something that has already had historical aspects of fighting alongside of humanity to come into conflict with you? Offer them what it is they're looking to be offered for you. It's kind of like the comparison of, in my eyes, the Cynocephali remind me of something like the Spartans, meaning they might not be in massive numbers, but yet the 300 Spartans it's documented held off how many Persians, right? I'm not saying it's the same equivalence, but if you are a war-driven culture that is hardy, etc., and lives up in the mountains and caves, I could see them pretty much being very similar to that. I mean, the Spartans could be unalived, just like Alexander the Great claims that the Cynocephali could be unalived, yet they were ferocious and extremely hard to take down, which, well, the depictions in history would suggest the Spartans were pretty hellacious and ferocious to take down, correct?
Right. Like Alexander the Great story where he actually fought battles with the Cynocephali and then fought battles against the Cynocephali. Um, Maybe they've taken some of Delgado's work and made a way for them to always agree with our side. Does that make sense?
Of course it does, totally.
I mean, between the encounters of, like I said, the one where the guy sees them marching in formation, and then you have the multitude of encounters where people hear the metal door slam before the Dogman shows up. That may be something to do with it.
Very interesting. And I know, and I agree that Jody likes to break it down into three separate categories: potential supernatural, potential alien, and potential flesh and blood, which I do believe there's a lot going on that kind of gets mixed up or might have facets from all of the above. I really tend to dive and spend a lot of my time into the latter portion, meaning the areas that I feel confident in speaking to people about involve this thing being able to be unalive just like anything else, meaning it could involve misidentifications, It could involve hyenas, baboons, giant cave bears, or even per se something that might not fully be documented yet.
Right.
From a lot of people I've spoken to that hit these things, they spit up blood, they yelped, they stumbled around, they ran off. And it's like Drewski says from Cryptid Warfare. He's former Special Forces and SWAT. He's got semi-automatic and automatic weaponry. Even brings out a grenade. Awesome. Like he says, you're gonna try to take me out? Nah, I'm going out with you. We're both going out. Boom. Yet he makes a very valid point. A lot of these people that are shooting it with very weak weaponry, and yeah, it's not taking it down, but it seems to irritate it. If you have an automatic weapon, and I don't know the most about guns, so I don't even know how much is in a round, but if you are really good with your shot like he is, and you're just unloading on something's face with an automatic weapon, you're in this realm, there's no way you survive that unless you're paranormal or you're, again, alien.
I think, honestly, my approach to it is the flesh and blood approach, because that's the best area that we're equipped to deal with. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it was all paranormal side of it all, aside from maybe getting video clips and stuff like that, there's not a lot we could do with on that. And with as far back as like the cynocephaly, as far back as they're documented throughout our time, I highly doubt that, it's going to be a paranormal entity. I think it is something that we as a population have forgotten over time, or it's been hidden from us over time to where we've forgotten about it. And honestly, I think that's the best approach to it to begin with. I'm not really one that subscribes to the whole shapeshifter point of view of it. You know what I mean? Where
Mm-hmm.
somebody turns into a werewolf under a full moon or whatnot. I'm sure you and I both know that moon cycle really doesn't have a lot to do with the Dogman sightings, or day and night. It's pretty well varied. And to me, that screams to just it being an animal or a creature that is flesh and blood. It's there all the time. It's just whether or not we know it's there or not.
Again, booyah. Listen to that. Excellent stuff. Preach, my friend. It's the same thing with Bigfoot per se. Again, I believe there's a lot of stuff that goes on, but when people say they claim, like JJ Messenger was telling Barb Hartman and myself, somebody clipped it in their van, okay? Hit its butt and it flipped up. The thing was pissed. It stood up, screamed, and started running after the van. If that wasn't something that maybe we just haven't documented yet, as you suggest, or have forgotten, why did it get pissed about that? Last time I checked, if that was paranormal, the van would have just went right through it. Maybe the van swerved because they thought something was there and crashed. But the paranormal being wouldn't have flipped up, left a dent in the front of the van, and been pissed and ran after you. Same thing. As far as I know, if it was extraterrestrial and you're taking damage from a van, what planet are you coming from?
You got good enough technology to get here, but you don't know how to guard yourself from here.
Right?
That
Exactly.
doesn't make sense.
No, so I'm definitely with you on those aspects. The whole Dogman thing, people don't realize that the full moon, as you stated, really has nothing to do with anything except for what I'm going to mention now. Every animal in general, psychotic people in general, are more active on full moons. Why? Because look at the illumination. If you are a predator that comes out naturally, is used to being nocturnal and hunting in some more of not the pristine areas of light, think how much a full moon is going to illuminate things. You and I don't even have really good night vision, and on a full moon, you can pretty much walk around and see things quite well. Again, same thing with psychotic individuals that are stalking people in the forest and such. Isn't it going to make it a lot easier to sneak up on somebody when you don't need a flashlight, right?
Actually, I've got well, a few family members that work in hospitals,
Hmm.
and they definitely get a spike in hospital visits around the full moon because people exactly what you say. I mean, they say that the crazies come out with the full moon, and it's irrefutable. It's there. You know what I mean? You can.
Yes. I'm not
But
trying to troll people. It's evidence. It's analytics, like you said. I mean, those are stats that anyone can look up. I didn't make those.
right. I mean, okay. Would you say that? I mean, if you went into the analytics of it all, if we look at like Fourth of July and New Year's around here in Texas, I bet you there's a lot more uh, people going to the hospital. You know, whether
Hmm.
it's full moon or not, because they're drinking and they're shooting fireworks. You know, whereas that's when people get more active. So if you have people that are wanting to do harm, or maybe they're just not feeling quite themselves that day or whatnot, they decide that the full moon is the time to go act crazy, and then they pay the price for it. You know,
It's mind-boggling, my friend. Just like the aspect of this, I am all about analytics and science and logical aspects, subjective, objective, until given reasons not to be. All right, so let's play by the lore of the werewolf for a bit. Even though, if anyone does have a chance to dive into it, silver and full moons, like Brian had just said, have nothing to do with the traditional aspects. Silver has always just been something that supposedly affects the creatures of the night, the paranormal beings, etc. Okay. And again, full moons, well, misunderstandings, and then same thing with Hollywood depictions, and now it's just kind of been all mixed up into it. We're going to take this now and just roll with it for a second. A silver bullet can just all of a sudden unalive, or anything silver, this raging beast. Okay. Meaning you could have one of those tiny pew pews that look like a squirt gun or a pellet gun, right? And then you just pop this thing and oh, bye bye. Yet somehow, through the transformation aspect, your body would endure so much trauma, meaning the skull crushing, which would then destroy your brain, the blood vessels smashing, your bones breaking, the traumatic amount of blood flowing out of you that is not supposed to be losing like that. But then something as simple as a little pellet of silver just unalives you. The scientific part of me and the logical aspects just find that harder to subscribe, because if you're a supernatural being, all that transformation wouldn't hurt you. But then a little piece of silver pew pew shouldn't hurt you either, right?
I mean, just looking at the mechanics of what it would take to transform, it's unreal. I mean, like you said, it's gonna have to crush bones, rebuild those bones, rebuild the entire muscle structure, uh, specifically just to form a snout. You know, uh,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way. You know, I think the legend of the werewolf comes from the Dark Ages, and they were the Dark Ages for a reason. And I think that, well, just like the Salem witch trials, you know, how many witches were actually burned at the Salem witch trials? Probably none, you know, but how many people got accused and how many people paid the price for that, you know, because things that we don't understand, we just automatically assume is evil.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's like, that kind of, I'm going to go into a tangent here. I'm sorry. I see so many of these encounters where people are absolutely, you know, traumatized by a Dogman encounter. And I'm listening to what they're saying to me. And to me, what the Dogman is doing is curiosity. I mean, if we're talking about a flesh and blood obligate carnivore that can run way faster than we can jump way higher than we can, is way stronger than we are, smells, has a better sense of smell, better sense of sight, we have 0% chance of fending that off, correct? So I think a lot of people, when they see the dogman and they run, well, now you're triggering the prey instinct. You know what I mean? Where, like, if you run from a dog is going to chase you because it thinks you're prey. Same thing with turning your back on a tiger. It's going to try to attack you. Um, I think that we've lost so much touch with how we should conduct ourselves in the woods and in the forests and in nature, period, that we make encounters worse than what they should be. You know, I mean, I'm not going to say his name, but he's a really good friend of mine in the NADP. He's had a dogman walk up behind him and grab him on his shoulder. I mean, wouldn't you say?
Couldn't agree more. I was actually talking about that with one of my hosts recently, meaning here are things I can verify. Unknown tracks, unknown sightings, missing people in national forests, missing people near cave systems, cattle missing, being torn apart, pets missing and being found mutilated. I can verify all of that. Now, things I cannot verify, as you just stated, was that by a dogman? I am not able to, I don't deal with 100s anyhow. Not a smart thing to do. Yeah, any sort of fatal encounter on a person with a dogman, no. Everything that I've looked into, others that I respect here at the North American Dogman Project or in general, there is no verification that would bring enough substantial anything to present those as relative cases. Again, do we have those cases now where, like I said, the pets are missing and livestock are being mutilated? Yes. Are those strange tracks? Yes. But do we have any sort of proof where we could bring this to a court system and be like, look, this is the culprit that's doing it? I don't, which means, like you just said, I don't fully think it's all just them being nefarious and involved, because there's times where they're messing around with doors where they could just rip the door off, banging on the window where they could just bang the windows in, like you just said, grabbing somebody's shoulder, chasing children that, well, even adults can't run that fast, especially the average American, okay? What the heck, right? There's definitely something still large to the puzzle that we are missing here. Not directly you and I, but just in general with what is trying to be presented.
When we brought Rochelle in, I think she is going to do a massive amount for how we handle encounters in the future. You know what I mean? With her being having a PhD in ethology, which is animal behavior. Like, I've had long conversations with her, and she's made me totally rethink tactics that we were working on for the SRT team here, you know, to where is it we're coming in too aggressively to maybe get that hostile reaction rather than just sending the message that we're not worth the time, you know?
Wow. Some food for thought right there. Yes, Dr. Reed is definitely another great addition to the science team. All our scientists are, for sure. So wait a second, you're telling me when I go out there with my rainbow fangs and I'm like, yo, come get some, wolf, wolf boy, it's probably not a good approach. That's sarcasm.
Right. But I mean, like, how many encounters have we heard where Dogman absolutely knows what a gun is? When it comes out, that long gun comes out or something to that nature, they know that's a weapon and they know it's time to get away, right? So if I send in an SRT team with 4 members and 4 guns and they are moving aggressively through the woods, invading the home territory of said dogman, would it not stand to that we would be causing more conflict than we should be, you know?
Whew. Again, nice food for thought right there. The whole weapon recognition makes me chime in once again to the cynocephaly. Seems like things keep on kind of pointing back in that direction. Again, we're going to make a fictional reference now, but everyone here must have seen Dog Soldiers. If you haven't, check it out. There's a scene where one of the Marines fires the shotgun out the window. Well, the werewolf grabs it and then fires it back inside before chucking the shotgun back inside the house. So wait a second. It could use weapons. Didn't want to, though. Really makes me think for now back into what we're talking about. What if they could use weapons, which I think they are very capable of, especially if they're the cynocephaly, potentially with swords and things. But I also have cases of people seeing dogmen with basically like war paint on, or seemingly even one individual said he swore it had an axe in its hand.
I would not doubt it at all. I mean, look at how many encounters we have with Bigfoot wearing clothes,
Mm-hmm.
It's all possible. I mean, the fact is even without any concrete evidence of its existence today, we don't have a body or anything like that. Just from the encounters, we can definitely derive that Dogman is highly intelligent, and if it's anywhere near our level, which some people say it's actually smarter than us, but if it's anywhere near our levels, it's using tools is nowhere near out of the realm of possibility,
Again, totally great recognition of the subject. Preach, my friend. A lot of people make the misconception that human beings are smarter than animals. Again, it's all relevant to the situation being presented. Majority of humans, well, couldn't survive on their own outside, yet every wild animal around here goes through different seasons, including winter, on its own, gathering its own food, creating its own house, etc. Sure, some people could do that. I'm watching a TV show right now on Hulu, though, where they take some average based people and put them in a situation called Extracted, where the family can then pull them out. Come on now. There's a woman that was a hairdresser that couldn't even start a fire. Some other woman that was a fourth grade teacher that claimed she was a survivalist, same thing. Couldn't start a fire and such. All right. Well, who's really smarter then, I guess? And how many times do predators unalive people? Quite a lot, right? The person that from the soccer team who jumped somewhere down in South America into crocodile infested waters and got consumed. All right. Well, I think we call that Darwinism, correct? Where usually people that are on that lesser decision making level don't tend to make it through advancements. And then again, I'd like to consider baboons pretty smart. And I use this example a ton. This really dominant baboon obviously was around for a while. I don't know what he was thinking. He probably doesn't know what he's thinking either because he's not here anymore. He walked too close to the water. Whop! This crocodile just busted him, pulled him in. Doesn't matter how big this baboon is. Tries to fight for a second. Yeah, bye. All right, well, aren't mammals supposed to be smarter than reptiles? Okay, well, baboons, primates, apes are supposed to be considered really intellectual as well. Well, that crocodile just completely outsmarted him real quick. So who's smarter?
Right. I mean, the instincts on a crocodile are insane. I mean,
Right.
their hunting strategy hasn't changed for thousands of years, thousands upon thousands of years. I mean, why mess with perfection, I guess, And it doesn't matter how smart you are. I mean, an opposable thumb's great and all, but you still have to go drink from the water where the crocodile is.
Yes. Great observation again. Hopefully, people know this if you're in crocodile territory, but specifically saltwater crocodile territory. You are told you can never do the same thing at the same time throughout the day, whether it's bathing near the shoreline, which you shouldn't do anyhow, washing your plates, if you're camping near there, you got to move that all the time because crocodiles learn your behavior, and all the fatal saltwater crocodile attacks that weren't caused by people really just doing outrageous things like we spoke of. I'm talking about the ones where they came up and pulled people out of their tents and things. It's because they learned your behaviorism. It seems pretty intellectual to me that they have the understanding of something's behavior, of when they're going to come down to this body of water to drink because it knows you need water. So, like you said, what needs to be changed on that seems to be working. I mean, maybe elephants. Elephants are smart. Sure, it hasn't been around that long yet, but it's still smart, right? Oh, nope, the crocodile just got hit too. Come on, like that's a pretty smart technique, I feel like.
Right. I mean, well, look at like your bull shark. You know what I mean? They hunt in shallow waters.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that's a fisherman subscribes to the physics law of 80-20, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where 80% of the fish are in 20% of the water, and that usually happens to be pretty close to the shoreline where bull sharks hunt. You know, and that's why we come into contact with them so much. That and their efficiency in freshwater as well. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the reason they're the number one shark. They're the number one most dangerous shark to us is because they're in our area, and you know they're hunting in the same spot where we're playing. You know, and that's the same thing with like the saltwater croc. I mean, down in Australia, you see them down there at the beach too. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and they're in the rivers, they're in the estuaries, they're in the lakes. You know, so I mean, you're in their territory.
The reason I made that reference to, and again, preach, beautiful stuff right there, is because of what you had mentioned with the dog man grabbing the shoulder and some of the stuff we mentioned earlier as we do start to come to home base here. No crocodile, no python, shark, anything is going to get you in a situation where it gives you more or less some sort of love tap and lets you go. All right? This isn't a Hollywood movie where the bear rolls you over and looks into your eyes and is like, oh no, this person has an epic future. I can't do this. It doesn't work like that, all right? A predator, if it really wants you, doesn't just let you go unless it's by force, right? Okay. Which this doesn't really solidify all of that in a lot of these instances. It does seem to be observation based, as you had stated with the Dogman and such. I do know there's a lot of historical references, especially with the Sasquatch, though, and especially in the Choctaw Nation and some other indigenous cultures, where they do have a lot of run ins with these Sasquatch coming and taking their women and children, taking their livestock. So, again, I'm not saying by any means I don't think they're involved. I just think, well, we're not doing ourselves much favors if people per se don't listen to the topic, don't necessarily think it's a big deal, even though people are missing all the time and they just put themselves in vulnerable situations. Or also, hey, something's sitting there bathing in the sun, right? Well, my squirrel likes to do that. The neighborhood cats like to do that. So why could this dog man or dog woman per se, you and I just walk up in there, sees us now, is it not going to be interested who these weird looking things are that are talking strange and wearing weird clothes? Or yeah, of course there's going to be some sort of curiosity aspect. And then like you said, if you act like a prey, it makes it a lot harder to have a non-conflict based situation, which obviously is easier said than done. Yeah, you don't act like food. You don't necessarily encroach on it, but if you look at like per se any sort of predators, usually that are engaging in confrontation, there's not really any sort of massive amount of confrontation, meaning the cougar, even though it's smaller than the grizzly bear, isn't coming at it, but it's also not showing it's afraid. You want someone to slap you right up in the face, but the bear walks forward. The cougar obviously respects its zone and gives it its space, but it's not afraid Again, hey, you're coming at me, I'm going to slap you in the face. Easier said than done. But if you're in a situation where potentially you could be looked upon as prey, you can't act like that. You need to just try to diffuse the situation and let that predator know this isn't really worth the risk reward aspect, you know?
Right. Absolutely.
Because if not, you're in some trouble. One of my favorite survivalists, Cody Lundeen, really dives into that a lot when, I don't know if you've ever seen Dual Survival with, he's the one that walks around bare feet all the time, which is a big reason I did, because not of the reason he does, but just the philosophy and such. But he just really talks about that because he's in areas all the time where there's predators around, whether it's leopards, if he's stuck in Africa, or just any sort of area. And again, you need to respect that it's their area, but you don't just totally act as if you're, wow, I'm going to be a pushover. Like this huge hippo was coming over to them. They slowly backed up as it was in the water and retreated off into the brush. You see what I'm saying? They didn't just run off, which a lot of people don't realize that. Not that the hippo is going to chase you like that, but I mean, hippos do some pretty unpredictable stuff and have been seen eating meat before and things. So yeah, that's for a whole nother topic. If you just run off, yeah, something's gonna chase you. And then if you start screaming like you really shouldn't be screaming, that makes it even worse because a lot of
Seems like
people,
you're injured.
yeah, and then you're prey. How many times do you think an animal is screaming its head off as the grizzly bear is eating you alive? Personally, I think if you start acting like that, you might trigger something more primal inside of the predator.
Right. I mean, you're absolutely right on that. I mean, thrashing around and making a ton of noise is never good dealing with a predatory animal. You know, um, I mean, you can take some of these pet animals, and people that have pet tigers, pet lions, pet bears, and stuff like that. And if you put somebody that's new to the situation into that cage with them, and then they throw that type of fit, they're gonna get attacked. I mean, instinct is going to take over.
Yes, it is, unfortunately, and a lot of people just don't make the most intellectual decisions sometimes, which is definitely coming into play with why people are per se just vanishing, and you're like, well, what the heck, you know?
Right. I mean, I think between the cave system and the cynocephali, we're going to find our answers along those routes. You know what I mean? And I think that's where a lot of the missing people go, is to those caves. That's definitely for another show.
Yes. Couldn't agree with you more on that, my friend. That is totally excellent stuff. Before we let you get back to the busy schedule you have at hand, is there anything else you'd like to touch base on tonight?
Um, Actually, good for once.
Perfect. But to the audience, yes, Mr. Patrick Bryan has many things to attend to. If you would like to keep up with what he is doing, you can check out the Texas North American Dogman Project state page. I will have it linked in the description of the video. He is up to many things, and if you are interested in, well, I don't really like puns, but boots on the ground or hands-on activity, he's definitely got you covered with his swagger. Yet, until next time, we do need to allow him to tend to other things. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight, man. I appreciate you.
Hey, no problem at all, man. It was good talking to you.
Ooh, my creatures of the night, you legends, I do adore every single one of you. And thank you for stopping in tonight. Please like, comment, subscribe, share the truth to the algorithm. We will catch you very soon.